few words about my fluency. It started when I was a master doctorate. A professor finished then, and he asked me about efficiency. And then I started to my interest in the area of fluency. My doctoral thesis was about reading practice. And I want to present today a research which will focus on different RTI, response to intervention. Meaning I will talk about two subtypes of reading disabled kids who respond differently to the acceleration program between the fluency-based intervention. And after that, we have recent work that supports the existence of subtyping scheme based on reading rate and accuracy. It was first reported by Lovett in the 94 to 97. This work did not show distinctive groups, but rate disabled and rate and accuracy disabled. And her interpretation was that they actually represent developmental or different developmental trends or severity-based continuum. And it was done on a deep orthography, meaning on English. The double association between rate and accuracy-based subgroups was offered by myself and David Sher in 2011. It was following the study by Leinen, I think, about Finnish readers, and they term them as hasty and hesitant readers. We, in our study, had a nationally representative sample of 4 graders, which were identified by specific accuracy disabled and rate disabled subgroups and a double deficit. I will not talk today about the double deficit group. What we saw is unique cognitive and linguistic profiles. But accuracy disabled had phonological deficit, and rate disabled had naming deficit. And these differences were not explained by biosocial, demographic, or instructional factors because it was a national sample, so we could compare it. We compared SES levels, we compared gender, we compared Orthodox and non-Orthodox schools, and we even compared methods of reading instruction. With TRIA, we published in 2012 data about adults. We had a large sample of 900 adults, and actually we presented essential differences in linguistic and cognitive factors, and they remain like in children. The interesting thing was that in this large sample of adults, we could not find so many double deficit students, probably because when you have double deficit, you don't always reach the university level. This is the clinical experience that I want to share with you. You can see here a profile of a 25-year-old student with intact rate and low accuracy levels. And this is the opposite, or the dissociation profile of an intact accuracy and low rate. Again, a student at the age of 22. Use this one, it's better? No, it's the same. With Karen Al-Kayam, raise your hand. We are working now, so it's in preparation, on a paper in which we again took the national representative sample, but now we added grades 2 and grade 6. So we had 1,132 children, and you can see the numbers in each grade level. And we used a descriptive discriminant analysis to identify 2 distinct rate and accuracy dimensions. So encompassing a range of linguistic and cognitive measures. So actually we build these measures not upon selective measures of reading, and I will show you in a minute. It was a lot of measures which was also reading and language. The dissociation between these dimensions is developmentally stable in elementary school students with reading disabilities among Hebrew readers. Those were the two dimensions by the DDA. So you see that we had accuracy dimension on these measures of decoding, phonology, orthographic processing, and morphology. And we had rate dimension for decoding rate, naming rate, and orthographic processing rate. Verbal memory did not load on any of those dimensions. This was the dimension plot of the group centroids beyond grade. So you can see how they are beyond grade according to the centroids, which are actually kind of vector composed of the variables means. These are the developmental trajectories actually are presented over here. So those are normal readers in Israel, Hebrew readers developing fluency beyond accuracy, after accuracy. And those are the rate disabled, and you can see that the slowness remained until grade 6. And these are the accuracy disabled, and those are the double deficit. Double deficit resembles more the accuracy disabled, but I think that the dissociation in the accuracy disabled between rate and accuracy is larger. So we saw that the differences between the subgroups extend to cognitive and linguistic processes beyond word reading in each grade, and rate disabled had selected deficits in naming, decoding, orthographic processing rate, alongside intact decoding, phonological awareness, morphological knowledge, and verbal memory. And the accuracy disabled had selected deficits in decoding accuracy, in linguistic variables, but not in naming speed. So what about intervention? Given the broad differences between rate accuracy-based subtypes, can we expect a differential response to a fluency-based intervention? Studies show that various fluency intervention programs promote reading skills as well as reading comprehension skills. But retrospective data analysis has been used in attempt to explain individual differences in response to intervention, but no previous empirical studies have compared response to intervention between these two specific groups, dissociative groups of slow accurate and fast inaccurate subtypes, or what you call in Finland, hasty and hesitant. To determine whether a fluency-based intervention program yields different response in terms of reading fluency and accuracy, this was the first objective. The second one was to see how fluency-based intervention affects reading comprehension in each group. And we hypothesized that the differential response to intervention would be improved rate in the rate disabled group, improved accuracy in the accuracy disabled group, and we thought that decreased differences between the groups for word and text reading will not be reflected in reading comprehension, because the rate disabled actually exhibit a deeper cognitive linguistic deficit in this group. They go backward? Okay. In terms of method, what I'm presenting today is data that we collected during, I think it was 2 years ago, when while we implemented the Saffron model in the schools, a lot of schools. As the Saffron model actually has several phases. We have a nice movie about it. We ask teachers to refer children with problems in reading. We then give them a test group. We test them in a group, and then we give them individual tests, and then we allocate them to the program of intervention. We had 7 schools of Hebrew speakers. Participants, I chose to show the data for 2nd grade and 4th and 5th grade together. So we contacted the schools, we had teacher training sessions because we involved the teachers in doing all this process. And the participants chosen for intervention program based on 3 factors. Teacher referrals, which was based on reading difficulty, and testing of word reading, and then we could look at the pre-intervention also in a little test. We administered orthographic pattern recognition on all the tests that you know, and also individual testing in vocabulary, naming, etc. We used to rap. I just want to say something about the reading acceleration program in Hebrew. We had a psycholinguistic, Dr. Amalia Baron, and she developed a very, very structured program for the acceleration, especially for children who have to establish the word reading level. And she built it with words within sentences, sentences within text, and a lot of questions that you are asked while you train yourself. So it's a very, very structured program, vowelized and unvowelized. And the kids really get a lot of practice sessions in terms of exposure to a variety of words according to the vowels in Hebrew, and within sentences as within text. As Svia mentioned yesterday, the starting point for training is tailored, so we can adjust the children to the rate that they exhibited. And the training speed was adapted, and the number of training units, they worked for 5 months, but it was dependent on the individual advancement. So several kids could practice for like 25 sessions, other less or more. And each unit included basic reading processes, words, sentences, and text. And then we administered the post-intervention measures. Those were the kids. We took the 60 children from grade 2, and we were able to find, according to this criteria that we published before, above the 35th percentile for being intact, and below the 25th percentile unintact, not intact. And I want to say that when we published the first paper, we had 5 reviewers in Annals of Dyslexia who asked, can you do it on the percentile of 16? And we got the same results. I mean, if you move it to 16 percentile or 25th, it's the same in terms of the results that you get. So we were able to find about 27% of rate disabled in grade 2, 13% in grade 3 and 4, and you see that the accuracy disabled 17% and 15%. Pre-intervention, and in accordance with previous findings, there were group differences on a range of cognitive and linguistic measures. So rate, better performance on all reading and accuracy measures, and phonological processes, and accuracy subgroup faster on all reading measures, faster naming speed and less accurate. On post-intervention, as hypothesized, each group improved in its deficit area, and we also saw differential improvement in reading comprehension. So let's see the result on the word level. What we got with repeated measures is effect of time and interaction. Meaning, for example, that accuracy disabled improved their accuracy much more than rate disabled. The same was in grade 3 and 4. And when you look at the rate improvement, you see the mirror effect. You see that the gains in rate are especially in the rate disabled group, and it's the same for grade 2 and for grade 3 and 4. And those are the significant interactions. When we looked at the text level, we saw the same patterns, even this kind of interaction. And It was less in grade 3 and 4. In grade 4 we only had time effect, but there was a train for this. And the rate, you can see that this is the mirror gate. But when we looked at the mean pace of correct responses, milliseconds per letter, because the program really measured the reaction time to each correct response, this is what we get for the rate disabled, and this is what we get for the accuracy disabled. So this is again the interaction. See that both group improves, but the gains are higher for the core deficit. And the same was in grade 3 and 4. But what about comprehension? There was a significant interaction. Again, rate disabled improved their comprehension, and accuracy disabled did not improve their comprehension. And it was the same in grades 3 and 4. So to summarize,
you're going too fast.
I am?
Yes. In the fast speed, can you show us again the curves? Or we are tired, or we are going too fast. I don't know. Maybe go more.
The whole presentation again?
Whole session.
אלה את אהבת? Those are the means, okay, in each session. Response time. And we have, what?
That's one session. Okay.
Yeah, 31 sessions. And it's the same trend. Okay, the comprehension is different. So if I can summarize, okay. My glasses, we are so smiling.
Can you show us the last one before the summary?
Yeah, I'll just start to summarize now. I'll talk slowly.
No. Can we see the? Yeah. Okay, just one second. Only.
She's accelerating. Just
She's
breathe.
accelerating. Yes, no. Against my theory.
I think when you get,
Okay.
when you look at the group mean, you get improvement. But if you look beyond the group mean for the subtypes, you see the differences in improvement. So it's the first study to examine the response of these dissociated rate and accuracy-based reading disability subtypes. We know in recent studies examining the RTI and other subtyping schemes, we have Michal and Douglas, comorbid or single disorder patterns, math intervention for RD, MD, RD plus MD. Compton with his work in cognitive training for ADHD with or without RD, COVID, Krause in 2013. And I think that our current findings support previous work regarding rate and accuracy-based subtypes, with differences between subgroups extending to cognitive and linguistic processes beyond word reading. It also extends findings to include RTI. When fluency-based intervention yielded different response patterns in rate and accuracy-based subgroups at the word and the text level. So actually each group showed a more significant improvement for its core deficit, but improved on both rate and accuracy. And it supports intervention targeting intact processes, because Reed and Warner Rogers are talking about the importance of training intact processes. Overall training effects provides additional support for the efficacy of fluency-based intervention. What about reading comprehension? It's the first examination of comprehension in rate and accuracy-based subtypes in children, not in adults. And unlike adults, what we found via slow, accurate young readers showed impaired comprehension pre-intervention, because we didn't see that in adults. In adults, we saw that the comprehension was intact in slow readers, slow and accurate readers. While fast and accurate readers improved in accuracy and decreased the gap in relation to slow, accurate readers, but the improvement in comprehension was limited, and no closure of the gap was noted. And the question is why? Well, multi-componential models of comprehension and accuracy and rate are necessary, simple view of reading, but not sufficient for intact reading comprehension. So we think actually that they are on the way, but they need more linguistic work, they need in-depth language support. I will say that I analyzed the data for Arab speakers, and I think we get the same patterns. You see, for example, look at the huge differences in terms of accuracy, and this is the results that you get for rate. So it's the same pattern. And here we have also, we had here, these are the comprehension results, only time effect and the gap. We don't get here interaction. It shows that the gap is not narrowing between these groups. And this is Arabic readers. Here we have 30 schools, 16 schools, sorry. So, further private conclusions, I can't finish my talk without doing it. I'm not yet conducting this kind of research, not fully understand all the colors, but I do understand when kids are happy because they improve their reading. That's it.
Question about this dimension, the subtyping hypothesis. I think on one view of this as a subtype rather than a strategy difference, because even a skilled reader can put an emphasis on speed, and there's a cost to accuracy, or an emphasis on accuracy, cost to speed. So one of the questions I think I would have would be on the notion that it's kind of an independent, maybe a different brain system or whatever. That would suggest that the correlation across your sample between rate and accuracy would be kind of low. And
Yeah.
was it low?
Well, in grade 4, it's like 0.48.
In the same
So
year.
it leaves a lot of. Among adults, it was 0.23,
So that's
our sample.
right.
So we don't get that high correlation between accuracy and rate in Hebrew. And it leaves a lot of children there. And I have a lot of thoughts about it. Svia said once that you think it's different parts of the brain. We don't know how it develops. That's why Sufit is now starting her doctoral dissertation to look at very young children to see if they have different processes of language versus maybe visual, maybe different kinds of deficits in attention. We don't know yet. We have some ideas with Liat Goldfeld that we want to check. What? Here she is. It's a question. I don't think it's a trade-off. I really think that the kids who read very fast they rely on something which is strong. It's naming speed. It's strong there. But they don't benefit from it. I don't think that the instruction that teachers give them, like slow down, will help them. I think it will do the opposite. I think what we saw here, that accelerating the reading improved both their accuracy and even more the rate, but not yet the comprehension. I think.
So I think that's. I I mean, 0.48 is non-trivial in
Yeah.
kids, especially if you look only at the parts of the population you're going to treat. I would think if they're fairly high, it's an issue. It's not a criticism, but it does go to how we think about the mechanism potentially. The second question related to that would be if they're if this is a kind of a dimension of some that's sort of not cognitive or not in some sense strategic, I suppose, then we should see in their behavioral testing. You mentioned at the beginning, but you went through the slide fast. No. But at the beginning you mentioned how they differ. So can you summarize what deficits the rape-disabled have that the other group doesn't and vice versa?
Okay, and then I will let Karen say everything. First, this dissociation between phonological processing and naming speed. So naming speed is really intact in the fast, inaccurate.
Okay.
Phonological processing is intact on rate, disabled.
Okay.
Okay? Then, when you look at syntax processing, morphological knowledge, also
orthographic processing,
orthographic
and
processing,
decoding.
spelling measures that we had, you see that accuracy on those measures is low among the rate, among the accuracy disabled children. So they have also verbal memory. So they have more deficits in terms of memory and language skills. And the dimensions that you saw here were not only reading. There were dimensions of accuracy across language and reading measures. And the rate had intact naming speed, intact phonological skills. Spelling was not intact, but was better than the other group. And we have these profiles, we have this experience in the clinical level. The question is how to intervene. I mean, one group just fly. You know, when they gain more rate, they become fluency, their comprehension improves. But the other group is on the way. It's not yet there because of the profound deficiencies in language and memory.
Yeah, I wanted to reply to your question. I think the main thing about the strategic or subtyping is the profiles of the groups. They have different profile cognitively, linguistically, orthography, decoding. It was very different. So we can say that the correlation between rate and accuracy was somewhat there, but it didn't reflect. It didn't reflect the actual profile.
Sure. No, and that's why I was asking for clarification. But I'd love to see the data.
The poster is over here.
And can I make one final comment?
Yes.
I'm logging this, but let me. I think that one of the things we're looking at in a treatment resistor responder study that we just began with Maureen Lovett is the distinction that Avi referred to yesterday between the so-called procedural and declarative systems, because there's a lot of evidence that on average RD kids have problems with the frontostriatal dependent statistical learning sensitive expertise developing system.
Yeah.
And so you see that in simple things like serial reaction time tests and others. And on the other hand, you have sort of the conceptual, the declarative, the so-called hippocampal dependent. Those distinctions are too extreme, but they, to a first approximation, as Avi said yesterday. It's possible that the subtyping would depend on the degree of difficulty in these different systems. And it's also possible because in most treatment studies, at least when rate's not the treatment tool, responders usually get more accurate, at least in English. They rarely get automatic. So one possibility is that the difference between those who respond to a treatment and those who don't is the relative use of, let's say, the conceptual system that gets you accurate but doesn't get you automatic. Those are questions I think that are interesting in English, and it would be interesting to see parallels in these other languages. But to the degree this is a dissociable and not simply
Yeah.
a sort of a threshold setting that brains adopt.
Yeah.
Then I think it'd be interesting to pursue the work on these different pathways and these different measures and see if they are dimensions where they differ that are totally non-linguistic, and yet would go to the theory. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Sorry to.
No, it's good.
This is the next step.
Sylvia, just I want one comment and then you can do. I just want to say that I began to think that maybe the term subtypes is not the one that I would like to use because of all the typology of subtypes, especially in English with all the problems, and the fact that when you are conducting a longitudinal study, sometimes they change the group that they belong to. I think that what I really want to talk about is reading profile and related cognitive language, maybe attentional processes, and to stress this, how this profile looks before the intervention. Okay?
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a short comment. I think that you might be right, and maybe to be accurate is the beginning or the middle of the road, later on to become more efficient,
Fluent.
or automatic, or fluent, or whatever. So maybe they need much more training sessions.
Well, that would be one.
That was about one thing, because they are on their way. If they became more accurate, does it mean that they are capable to be somehow on the road?
Right. Are they now ready to become
Ready, maybe, yes,
Maybe
and then
more
you have to
fluent, yeah.
maybe do something else. And now I just want to make one comment. When we developed our reading acceleration program, we even didn't, at that time, didn't mean to train comprehension. I left it to Tammy and the young generation to do it. So we really, really focus in the acceleration and the acceleration phenomena even based on it, on a rate or fluency, or what we call speed of processing, or the underlines, and decoding. And now I think that you took the glove and continue to do it to develop a comprehension program to enhance reading.
Well, it's the
two
version
totally
samples
different
that
things that we are
require
talking about.
But I have a related question. To understand more about these reading profiles, you showed what loads on accuracy and what loads on reading. I was really interested because if you want to improve comprehension and you go back to a simple view reading, how do they differ on their vocabulary? Did you look at vocabulary and different aspects of vocabulary, receptive vocabulary, expressive
before, not enough in this national and we didn't have enough measures of vocabulary. I think with Karen, we had vocabulary on the Peabody, and there were differences. So accuracy disabled were lower on vocabulary. I didn't look yet at the gains in vocabulary, but I think that you get benefits in comprehension because of the automaticity model of inversion samples that far away, like 74 something. I think we need to look more, even at different levels of comprehension. Where are the difficulties? Not since we are working now as a group in comprehension measures, it's not just the surface structure. We have to look deeper. How they build the text base, how they build meta representations, how they're dealing with deeper levels of different levels of comprehension. So there is a lot to do before I'm going to my pension.
Before that, we're going to a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to say that the Arabic data was collected by two wonderful colleagues of us, Dr. Yasmin Awad, she's here, not only collected, she also translated and did the whole thing, and Hanadi, who is a PhD student of David Cher. So some credit should be given, right?
Yeah. Sorry for giving credit.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.